got the chance to thank you for all the work you did and will do. Sometimes you seem more proud of me than my parents or friends ever will be. And so I thank you at the Green, at my show, taking pictures of the cast and me. And I never got the chance to thank you for all the work you did and will do. Sometimes you seem more proud of me than my parents or friends ever will be. And so I thank you. And so I thank you.
We'll make a noise. Oh God, the humanity!
I like the idea that the I just forgot the name. What the blimp that blew up?
The Hindenburg?
The Hindenburg.
Yeah.
Like that recording, the guy, the tape that he had with him while he was recording it was actually, I guess, running low on battery, so it was like recording slow.
Oh.
So when you hear it, it's actually, it sounds like he's kind of like high pitched. You know, he's like, "Oh my God, the humanity!"
Right to the mooring mast, all the humanity and all the fans.
But that's not what he sounds like at all. He's actually got kind of a low voice, really smooth, low voice.
Weird.
But since it was recorded, the tapes were running, the reels were running slow. When it plays back at normal speed, it just speeds it up. So he's like, "Oh my God, it's the humanity!" There's a. Oh, thanks. There's a corrected version of it.
Not quite to the mooring mast, all the humanity and all the fans.
It doesn't sound like what I grew up hearing.
I put one of those under my tongue, and that usually it's kind of gross. But
That's the nature of it. Just as gross as smoking.
yeah. See, I still have this cough. Like it's still hanging on from
crazy.
how long. I feel like you should do the intro.
Oh yeah, because it's, yeah. All right, welcome back to another fun-filled episode of Blue and Gray. All right, you just heard a song that I wrote for my grandmother a long time ago, probably in high school, maybe college. It is, her birthday is Valentine's Day. She's going to be, or she is at this point, probably by the time you're listening to it, 98 years old. And she's probably healthier than me. Like
Wait, she's still alive?
Yes.
Oh shit. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm like grandparents are.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's the song kind of like it says. I want to thank you for all the work you've done, and will do. You know, like she's still alive, and still kicking. And I was just thinking about when I wrote the song, she was probably in her late 70s. And I was like, oh, she's probably not gonna be alive very much longer. And I wrote the song, you know, and here we're 20 some years later, and she's still doing great.
I wrote a song like that. I thought there's this guy that hangs out at Mojo, or I guess now it's Bar 13.
Vinny, yeah, I knew you were gonna
old, and he's not like mentally all there, and like, or he's a character, like he's a staple of that place, the bar mascot. So I'd hang out with him, and then one day he told me that he had prostate cancer, and that kind of threw me for a loop. So I kind of got a little distraught about it, and then I wrote a song, and then I see him again, and he's like, yeah, I don't have prostate cancer. I'm like, oh, Okay. Well, go Vinny.
But you got a song out of it.
Yeah, I got a song out of it, and then it'll mean something someday about something. I also lied about my grandmother or my grandparents being dead, like one of them's still alive. I'm a bad grandson.
Wow.
No, I love you, Grandma. Sarang hail.
So, no, our sponsor today is my grandmother's birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Best sponsor ever.
Shameful plugs. Okay, Bernie fucking Sanders. He's winning, and it's amazing. I'm so inspired by him and the greater progressive movement. If you're anything like me and you're happy about this, I want to let everyone know that February 28th is the deadline to change your party affiliation. And if you are not registered as a Democrat in the state of Delaware, you cannot vote in the Delaware primary elections for the president. The deadline, I'm not sure how these work. It's a little confusing. It says February 28th is the deadline to change party affiliation, and April 4th is the deadline to register to vote before the presidential primary election, which is on April 28th. And that doesn't really make sense to me, because like, why would the date to change party affiliation be before the deadline to register to vote for the primary? So if you're out there and you don't know whether you're registered as a Democrat, stick with the February 28th deadline and look it up, register. Even if you think you're registered, it's always good to check, because there are people who, do voter purges and voter suppression, gerrymandering. I think that doesn't happen as much in this blue state of ours, but better safe than sorry. I feel like we're going to need everything that we have going into this to come out on top. There's also these Democratic candidates. I think this election is further down the line. So April 28th is the presidential primary in Delaware. And then later there's an election. There are local elections. I believe it's September 15th, but I'll talk more about it as the year progresses. But Delaware has a progressive movement. There is Medina Wilson Anton, I hope I'm saying that right, Larry Lambert, and Eric Morrison. They're campaigning for the state, Delaware's General Assembly. And then there's Kobe Owens and Shanae Darby for Wilmington City Council. And the campaign that I have been working most closely with, Jessica Scarrain, for the U.S. Senate. She's running in the primaries against Chris Coons. Chris Coons, just as a reminder, is a centrist corporate Democrat. He voted to fund Trump's wall and all his military actions, and a lot of bad, really right-wing judges. That's all I have for now with the progressive movement.
Awesome.
Solidarity.
Yeah, and you and definitely vote. Everyone always concentrates on the presidential election. Really, the president picks things that all the other politicians select. So we pick all the other people, and then that legislation goes up through the ranks, and then the president just approves it. So you really, no one thinks about all the other elections that happen, which are decidedly more important on an individual level. Yeah,
I do want to make the point that a lot of us, there's such a huge movement behind Bernie right now, and a lot of us are really passionate and excited in this horrible political landscape. However, no single presidential candidate can change this country. We need everyone on board pushing at the local and regional levels of government if we actually want to have a real change in this country. So please do, if you feel so inclined, go out, not just vote, but I personally love canvassing. I think it's a great way to connect with others. I feel like it fights off that alienation that you feel from culture.
Leslie Knope. Have you ever, Parks and Rec, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
She loves canvassing.
I love that show. And yes, it's actually a lot of fun to canvass, have conversations with people about topics that might be important to you. Yeah, go out there. Manipulation?
Yeah, this is me. All right, so now I'm the sick one coughing. Getting over being sick.
For the record, I'm still getting over that month. It was like a month ago, and I still have a bit of a cough. That's what you're in for. A month later.
Earlier today, I felt like I was drowning, and like you were talking about how coronavirus is like you drown in your own phlegm, and I was like, oh my gosh, sitting on the couch, and I could actually hear my chest wheezing and cracking, like with all the stuff in it, and I was like, oh my gosh. But I think I'll be all right. Manipulation. So I was listening on the radio, and like I talked to Yejun about this earlier, that it seems like every few years, or maybe even every year, there seems to be like a time when a whole bunch of like heartbreak songs come out that are like really sparsely arranged, and they're really emotional and really manipulate you into like feeling the heartache. And particularly me, now that I'm single, divorced. I guess I'm not allowed to say single.
Yeah.
Just say divorced now. I don't know. But alone, being alone, and I hear these songs on the radio, and they like really tug at me emotionally. And I recognize the manipulation in like knowing music, like, and I take a step back because it's like corny lyrics and everything, but it's like, you get either a piano or a guitar, and then like these like synth pads or violins in the background that kind of like swell and tug at your emotions. And hopefully that's the way the song I wrote for my grandmother is going to come across, because I'm going to try to do my version of it. So we'll see.
Is it around the same time of year? Like, is it around Valentine's Day that this happens?
Well, I've heard these songs in the last month, so I mean, actually, wait a second, we might be on to something.
It's the music industry's way to capitalize off of loneliness
during the romantic holiday. It's even further manipulation. I wasn't even realize.
That feels a little gross.
I know, like even to I heard one of the songs on the way, and I stopped at the pharmacy to get some cough drops, and there were roses there, and I was like, I've known to buy roses for, maybe I'll just buy roses for, I work with mostly women at work, and I was like, I'll just buy roses for the service department. And I'm like, what am I doing? But I was manipulated. I was being manipulated to buy stuff. This is an on-air epiphany. That not only is a song manipulating me into feel sad, but feeling sad at this time of year is manipulating me into buy goddamn roses.
You gotta keep those boundaries up.
I just got a little bit more jaded.
You hear that?
Yeah, it's like
that's Sean's soul.
My soul's leaking out as I realize how everything is just capitalism and money and greed. There's no authenticity anymore. It's just like probably like a whole bunch of people were like, you need to have the one heartbreaking song. We got to put it out right around January, just so people can warm up to it by February.
Speaking of which,
give us money. We should get a Patreon too. Yeah. And then we'll find out what holidays we need to market ourselves during and stuff.
Sell our souls dying. So this episode song is called Johnson Memorial. It's a song that I wrote about a year ago, I guess. My goal with it was to try and push myself in terms of songwriting from a lyrical aspect. I wanted to tell better stories. Of course, I don't want to write love songs in general. I feel like that's somebody else's thing. So I started writing stories about my growing up in Indiana, and I tried to push myself to try and write around guitars that just like kind of a blank canvas, so like it could just be kind of genreless. I think I've mentioned that before, but particularly this song and like a dozen songs that I wrote afterwards. So it was just supposed to be kind of sparse in terms of instrumentation, kind of generic, straightforward, old style rock and roll.
Yeah.
Outside of the city, past Mellow Run, a ranch house, a cornfield in Barker's Tucky. The teenage kids would go to pick up drugs from a middle-aged divorcee Vietnam veteran.
That's what they told Johnson Memorial. That was Johnson Memorial. The basic premise of the song, back when me and my friends were in, I guess, high school, college age, we used to, do some things. I don't do drugs now. It's been several, years, more than a decade since I've been into drugs, so that's good. So this one didn't happen to me specifically, but my friends. We'd get our pot from this old middle-aged guy, and
It's
he
marijuana.
Marijuana, reefer. We used to get our reefer from this middle-aged, divorced Vietnam vet, and we'd go over there, and there's just bags of morphine everywhere, and the place was a mess. It was kind of like in a trailer home with or like a double wide kind of deal.
How'd you guys connect with this guy?
I don't know.
That's weird.
One of my friends, it's like a friend of a friend of a friend, and it was out in the middle of the cornfields, so you'd have to drive pretty far south of Indianapolis to find this place. The place is Bargersville, that's the city, and it's past this area called Mallow Run Winery. My best friend from high school, his wife works there now. So if you're in Indiana, check out Mallow Run Winery. Everything's a fucking sell. Everything's a plug.
Perfect Valentine's Day gift.
Yeah, grab a bottle of wine and kick back. So my friends were picking up some marijuana. They went over to his house in Bargersville, which is also nicknamed Barger's Tucky because it's just so sticks. And
like Pennsyltucky.
so they go to his house, and he's kind of out of it. He's kind of drunk or just fucked up, stoned, morphine, nobody knows. And he starts flipping through old photographs, and he's crying about his past relationship, I guess his wife. And then he takes out a shotgun. He just starts racking it.
What?
And the shells are flying out of it, and my friends are freaking out. They got the pot. And then they got out of there.
That's a little frightening.
Something I used to hate, and I think there's been stand-ups about it, is back then you have to go jump through weird hoops just to get drugs.
I never was into drugs. I was always, people around me were always doing drugs, but I was just a drinker.
Let me tell you, it is like going to, you've seen the Never-Ending Story?
Oh yeah.
And you go to this magical wonderland, and then you come back, and it's like the entire world is just in gray scale, like the colors pale in comparison to this magical wonderland, and the volume is turned down.
Yeah, it's funny. That's what one of my friends told me, since I never really used, particularly with shrooms or LSD. He said that everything just feels kind of weird and empty, And then he was like, you probably don't want to do it because you'll either have a bad experience and then you'll be even worse afterwards, or you'll have an amazing experience and you will just hate real life.
Yep. It's a hard come down. A lot of people, I think they tell me, oh, you always seem so calm or very level-headed. And it's just everything's fucking gray. It's just a mush. That's what it is. The thing is, I handle myself really well now as an adult. And I think a lot of people have been through this, and then once they're in the professional world, they pretend like it never happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole generation of people that
yep.
They're like that. The boomers right now are they're pretending that they weren't just fucking each other silly and doing all these drugs for a decade.
Yeah,
it's we don't talk about that.
Although I did go to raves, but I never did the rave drugs. I never did ecstasy or K. I think that's for the best.
I never did any of those drugs. I kind of veered away. But I think the first time I was around someone who did E, I came over to have a cigarette, and he was sitting out, and like it was in college, like a courtyard somewhere. You know, there's courtyards everywhere in college. And I was like, I had a cramp in my arm, and I was like, yeah, this like knot in my arm. It's really crazy. And he grabbed my arm and massaged it for like 45 minutes. And he was like rolling at the time. I didn't know he was. But I was like, thanks, dude. This is like a real intense massage. Like, just like, and he was like, oh, I can feel it. He's like, I can feel the knot. I can feel, oh, God. And I was like, wow, dude. And like afterwards I left with my friend, and I was like, man, that guy was really weird. And he was like, oh, he was on E. And I was like, oh, that's funny.
It seemed like he liked that more.
Like I was just, and I just let him, you know. It's like random dude massaging my arm. Probably when, if I were rolling too, it probably would have felt really good too. Like probably been like some sexual moment with him. But I was just like, thanks, man.
Another note about Johnson Memorial. I had my friend Jack, my bandmate from Bad Eyesight. He plays the bass in Bad Eyesight, and he plays guitar in these noise rock bands of they're called Dirtweed Review and Empty Shapes. He is a kick-ass, like he's got chops. He can play leads, he can finger pick, and I feel like people probably don't know that. He's just not in creative projects where that side of him is shown. So, and a common thread that I noticed in all these songs that we're doing, there's a lot of guitar solos in the songs that I write, and they've kind of fallen by the wayside as far as rock music goes today. I figured...
Hold on. All right, I need a new cough drop. Reload. I do say that going back and listening, because I think when we talked about the song in the last episode, the guitar solo hadn't been recorded yet, so we were just like, and there's a guitar solo. But now that it has been recorded, it's pretty blisteringly awesome. Like I'm
very proud of it. Thank you.
It just sort of dive bombs in, and it hits all the right notes, and then just lingers on into the outro choruses like just enough. It's yeah.
Yeah, I think with guitar solos, it's not about like how fast you can play or whatever. There's certain like aural cues that really like hit the spot for me. So I've noticed they tend to be kind of like big bends along the lines of J Mascis. Also, there's got to be like a slightly sloppy thing to it, like they're trying to reach for something. One of my favorite guitar solos of all time, that would be, it's so basic. I mentioned this to my son, and he's like, man, that's really basic. But Stairway to Heaven, Jimmy Page. That's just one of my favorite guitar solos, because he hits, it seems like he's trying to get something like that is out of reach, but then he kind of gets it too. And he did it in 3 takes on a Telecaster through a Supro, I believe. So that's one of my favorites. And then it's got a wail on the right note. So Hendrix has these big bends, but like it has like this wailing quality to it. And then also Comfortably Numb, that solo is big for me.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up David Gilmour, because when they were interviewing him as being one of the best guitarists, he was like, I'm not very good. Which is funny for him to say that. Like he doesn't think that he has much technique. He just sort of has a melody and a sense to it, and he has really good pitch, so he can bend a note perfect. And kind of famously on Wish You Were Here, he's singing along with his solo. Yeah. And he says he does that with all solos. And I've read that that's one of the probably best ways that you can work on your soloing, is like be able to like sing it and then play that. And I've never quite been able to do that.
Me neither.
Because if you're not doing that, then you're really just noodling around and not doing it with intention. So
yeah, mine are largely a matter of luck from noodling, and then I gathered together like little licks here and there that I've stumbled upon that I think sound good. I can't do anything intentionally though, so I also feel like I'm not really I'm not a real lead guitarist, but even though I will play solos.
So I think maybe we talked about this before, but there is like a type of brain that is musical. When I see like really great musicians, that they're not even their brain is already a few steps ahead of what's actually happening. And I can't do that, like musically. Like for me to be able to like stay in rhythm and do all these different things, I'm in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And there's even probably a little bit of latency where I'm a little late on things because like I can't think that far ahead. And when I do, I start messing up what I'm doing, where I'm like, okay, here's where I come in on oh man, I just screwed up what I'm playing now. So I think there is a sort of brain quality that really good musicians have where they're living in the next space.
I think you need a dog.
I do need a dog.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get a dog.
I guess we'll end the episode there.
Yeah. Pennsyltucky.
Do you say that?
Yeah, like the farmland of Pennsylvania,
Okay.
Pennsyltucky.
I didn't know that.
Now you do.